I died in the year I loved him the most. With a fortune worth hundreds of millions, he let it all go without a second thought. He stayed by my side as we were consumed by the flames. When I opened my eyes again, I was back 10 years earlier. We had just gotten married, and it was the time I hated him the most. I ran to his office in downtown Seattle, and the moment I saw him, my voice broke. "Ethan, I'm sorry." He froze for a brief second, then his expression turned cold and distant. "Go ahead, tell me, how are you planning to torment me this time?" The last thing I remembered from that explosion was Ethan never making it out. Always so neat and polished, he knelt beside me and said, "Nina, don't be afraid. I'm here with you." He was 38 that year. A fortune worth hundreds of millions, and he let it slip away like it was nothing. He stayed with me as the fire swallowed us both. It was a midsummer evening, the sky outside painted red with the fading sun. A stifling breeze drifted into the room. I woke from a dream, sitting on the bed in a daze. The clock ticked softly in the corner, and a calendar sat quietly on the desk. "Ma'am, Ethan just called. He said he won't be back tonight," Mary's calm voice floated in from the living room. I looked down at the shiny new wedding ring on my finger. I closed my eyes. Somehow, I was back 10 years earlier. The roaring flames from my death, and the warm, solid embrace, they felt so real. In that final moment, Ethan had whispered, "Nina, don't be scared. I waited for you too long in this life. In the next one, I'll find you sooner." Was this a dream or reality? I pinched my thigh, and a dull pain shot through me. The sound of a car horn outside snapped me out of my muddled thoughts. After the shock faded, a deep, lingering ache and bitterness welled up inside me. A misunderstanding, orchestrated by someone else, had made me hate Ethan for years. During that time, his rivals did everything they could to crush him. It left him gasping for air. At home, I treated him with cold indifference, so he stopped coming back often. Ethan had lost his parents young and had no real family left. He guarded a sprawling business empire alone for half his life. Later, the misunderstanding cleared up. We had a few months of happiness, enough to conceive a child. But I never got the chance to tell him I was pregnant before we met our end. "Ma'am, the flowers are here. Are you heading out?" Mary came in to ask. "What?" My mind was still a jumbled mess. "The flowers. Aren't you going to see Ryan?" Ryan. The name hit me like a jolt, untangling the chaos in my head. So it was that day. Ryan was my childhood best friend. A talented actor too. But a so-called accident left him with severe burns, confining him to a hospital bed in Portland for years. In my past life, on this day, I brought a bouquet of flowers to the hospital. I spent his birthday with him. When I left, I saw Ethan sitting in his car outside, the cigarette between his fingers burned down to the stub, unnoticed. I didn't want to explain anything, didn't even want to see him. "Nina." Ethan spotted me, put out the cigarette, and got out of the car, his voice heavy with disappointment. "It's my birthday today." I stopped, turned, and looked at him coldly. "So what?" His dark eyes met mine, silent. I said, "It's Ryan's birthday too. To marry me, you stooped to anything, ruined his face, destroyed his future. What do you expect from me?" Ethan opened his mouth, struggling to speak. "It was just an accident. If you hadn't invited him that day, he wouldn't be lying in a hospital bed right now. How am I supposed to believe it was an accident?" Ethan fell silent, then finally said, "I'm sorry." From that day on, things between us spiraled downward. It marked the start of a long, agonizing Cold War. Later, I learned that what Ethan and I both thought was an accident was actually a scheme by someone else to drive a wedge between us. "The stuff's already in the car. If you don't leave soon, you'll hit traffic." Mary called out again. Outside, the sun was half set, the light dimming. I snapped back to reality, hurriedly threw on a jacket, and got into the car. Because it hit me, this was 10 years ago. There was still time to change everything. The driver merged into traffic. The road to the hospital's jammed up. "Maybe call Ryan and let him know you'll be late." "No hospital," I said, staring at the shifting red and green lights outside. "Take me to the office." Truth be told, I didn't have many memories of Ethan's office. When I was younger, I hated him so much I never visited. Later, when I loved him, his enemies were closing in, and it was too dangerous to come see him. So now, standing beneath a cluster of high-rise buildings in Seattle, I felt lost. Which one was his? Passers-by gave me curious looks, a girl clutching a huge bouquet, dressed up, makeup on, like someone about to confess her love. I fished out my phone awkwardly and pulled up Ethan's number. Just his name, plain and simple. Not even an emergency contact. I hit call, expecting a long wait. But after 2 rings, he picked up. A cool, detached voice came through. Something up? Hearing him again, my eyes welled up, and my voice choked. Ethan, where's your office? I can't find it. The people around me stared harder now. A woman who didn't even know where her husband worked, sobbing on the sidewalk. Ethan paused, maybe he was in a meeting, then said, "We'll stop here for today." To me, he added, "Stand on the crosswalk. I'm coming down." A few minutes later, Ethan stepped out of the building. His tall frame cut through the neon lights, dressed in a sharp suit, composed and elegant. I caught my reflection in a window, mascara streaking down my face like some horror movie character. Damn it, ruined. Why are you here? His tone was flat, almost icy. I turned around. A handsome, towering man looked at me coolly, his pupils reflecting my smudged face. His expression stiffened slightly. Ethan was always impeccable, no matter the moment. Like a flower blooming on a cliff, untouchable and pristine. "I'm sorry," I mumbled, head down, too ashamed to meet his eyes. "I didn't mean to bother you." "Today," he started, then stopped. I knew what he meant. Today, I was supposed to be with Ryan for his birthday, not here. That reminded me. I shoved the flowers into his arms, muttering, "Happy birthday." A long silence followed. I peeked at him. He was staring at the bouquet, not exactly thrilled. After a while, he let out a bitter, mocking laugh. "Nina, these are his rejects, right?" "What?" I noticed his mood shift and glanced at the flowers, my heart sinking. "Oh no. Ice blue roses. They meant, to you, the stars and the sea. Ryan's favorite." In my rush to find Ethan after waking up, I'd overlooked that detail. "I'm sorry, Thanks for the birthday gift." His tone was stiff, almost harsh. "It's getting late. Let the driver take you home." He turned to leave. I grabbed the hem of his jacket in a panic. "Wait." He hadn't expected that and stumbled, pulling me forward. I crashed into his back. His tailored suit now sported a colorful smear. Ethan turned, staring at my hand for a long moment, silent. I dug in my heels, stubborn. "Ethan, I'm not going back." His expression darkened. "Nina, how are you planning to torture me this time?" That was a tough question to answer. In my memory, we'd just gotten married around this time, and I was in the middle of picking fights with him. I was 23, he was 28. The arguments were mostly one-sided, me hurling whatever hurtful words I could think of, even gifting him things designed to stab at his heart. I was like the boy who cried wolf. After too many false alarms, he stopped believing me. Back then, once the misunderstanding cleared, I'd been direct, pounced on him, and that was that. This man, despite his aloof exterior, was surprisingly easy to win over. But that trick might not work now. And after all the pain and grievances he'd endured, I wanted to make up for something. After some thought, I said, "Let me treat you to dinner." Ethan lowered his eyes, cold. "No need. I've got work tonight." "Then we'll order takeout." I shamelessly trailed after him. "I'll get you a warm bowl of noodle soup." He didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge me. The flowers were still clutched tightly in his hand. Passing a trash can, I thought he'd toss them without hesitation, but he didn't. I followed him all the way to his office. It was empty. A cold takeout box sat untouched on his desk. Was this how he planned to get through the night? A pang of heartache hit me out of nowhere. I pulled out my phone and ordered him some noodle soup. Clear broth, light on salt, no green onions. Sides of tomato braised beef and a few mild veggies, no spice. He used to order heavy, flavorful food to match my tastes, but I later learned his stomach couldn't handle anything too spicy, oily, or salty. After placing the order, I sat on the couch, unsure what to say. Nothing seemed quite right. Ethan was unwrapping the flowers, about to put them in a vase. The ice blue roses stung my eyes. Without thinking, I walked over, snatched them, and tossed them in the trash. He froze, staring at the blood beading on his thumb from a thorn, and sighed wearily. "Nina, are you done messing with me?" "No." I swallowed my frustration, annoyed that he was so passive, like he had no temper at all. "Forget those. You don't like them. I'll get you something else." Ethan pulled out a tissue, pressing it to the cut. His eyes dropped, and he muttered, "Forget it." Ignoring him, I grabbed the trash bag and said, "Wait here." Then I bolted out. It was a summer evening, and the streets were lined with flower vendors. Their blooms weren't as fancy as the ones from shops, none of those $100 bouquets, but they'd do. I hit up every stall I could find, buying all the red roses they had and tying them into a simple bunch with some rough paper. The takeout arrived just in time, so I hauled everything back upstairs. The 19th floor was quieter than when I'd arrived. The few late workers had already left. Only Ethan's office glowed with a small lamp. I softened my steps and pushed the door open. He stood with his back to me, facing the floor-to-ceiling window, his silhouette lonely. He looked like an abandoned stray dog. The heavy flowers and food banged against the door with a thud. Ethan's shoulders stiffened. He turned sharply and saw me struggling under the load. "Hey, don't just stand there, help me," I panted. He clearly hadn't expected me to come back. After a brief moment of surprise, he strode over, taking the flowers and takeout with one hand and slipping the other under my arm to guide me to the couch. I caught my breath, sweaty but grinning. "These are for you. I bought every red rose on the street." Ethan's handsome face went blank for a second. Great, he probably wasn't used to me treating him like this. Did I have to yell at him to get through? Seeing him reach for the cold takeout, I let out an exasperated ugh. He glanced over instantly, and I caught a flicker of worry in his eyes. I flopped onto the couch, jutting my chin out, annoyed. "Can't you eat something hot for once? Watching you pick at that junk drives me nuts." "Ethan." For the next half hour, his office echoed with my griping. "Can you even eat properly? There's a huge chunk of beef right there, blind or what? No veggies? You're not a kid anymore, stop being picky. Suck the noodles already. I didn't buy them for you to stare at." With my relentless nagging, he finished a steaming bowl of noodle soup. Worried it wasn't enough, I added a couple of rolls and even gave him the sweet pastry I'd gotten for myself. If I had to nag him like this every day, I'd lose my mind. My throat was dry from all the talking. Suddenly, a glass of water appeared in front of me. I looked up. Ethan was watching me. "Wet your throat before you keep yelling." His demeanor had softened a lot. His eyes were still dim, but the icy wariness was gone. I fought the urge to hug him and said, "Ethan, let's make this work from now on." He looked away, silently cleaning up the bowls without answering directly. "Put your jacket on. I'll have the driver take you home." "But I just got here." He moved quickly, opening the door to leave, like he was escaping something. Trash pickup wasn't exactly a CEO's job. I couldn't lie, it stung. Back from the dead, and somehow, winning this guy over felt harder than ever. I sat on the couch, plotting my next move. Should I just pounce, or spill my heart out first then pounce? A sharp ringtone cut through my thoughts. I answered absent-mindedly. A familiar, long-lost voice came through. "Nina, where are you?" My bubbling excitement crashed to the floor. I remembered who this was. "Oh, it's you." My tone wasn't exactly warm. Ryan's voice was gentle. "I've been waiting forever. Didn't we agree to spend my birthday together?" Thinking back to everything from my past life, my fingers tightened until my knuckles turned white. "Ryan, we've always been friends who grew up together, right?" He sensed something off and corrected me. "Nina, we're family." "Family," I repeated, then suddenly asked, "Don't you have anything to tell me?" He paused, then sighed. "Sorry, I shouldn't have hidden it, I snuck some cake." See? People who feel cared for can lie, make demands, and joke around without a second thought. But Ethan? He was always stuck in the background, taking it all. My whole body went cold. I couldn't even force a smile. "I've got something today, so I won't make it. Happy birthday, though." I hung up, took a deep breath, feeling suffocated. Before the kidnapping, Ryan had called me, asking where I was. I sank into thought. He was the person I trusted most, my companion for over a decade. But what if, from the very start, that explosion was an inside job? I looked up and saw Ethan standing in the doorway, his face half hidden in shadow, unreadable. I hesitated, then asked, "You heard all that?" "Yeah. Let's go." His voice carried a strained calm. "The car's downstairs." I opened my mouth, unsure how to explain what would happen in the future. I was afraid he'd think I was nuts. I followed him out, guilt surging inside me. "Ethan." He slowed slightly but didn't turn. It was Ryan on the phone, I blurted out fast. "Yesterday, I did promise to spend his birthday with him, but today's different. I'm from the FUT." "Enough." Ethan stopped abruptly, turning to face me, his eyes icy. He closed them briefly, smoothing his emotions. "Dinner was good. I'm glad you spent my birthday with me." I stared at him, catching the pain buried deep in his gaze. His lips were pale, each word trembling like it came from someone in agony. "So if you're going to Ryan in the end, I'll accept it. That's the price I pay." In my past life, Ethan once told me that every bit of kindness I showed him came with a steeper cost and pain. He never dared hope for more and was always ready for me to walk away. Those words now sliced into me like a knife, twisting, aching. In my past life, on this day, when I wasn't around, his birthday dinner was just a cold takeout box. No one wished him a happy birthday. So he'd waited for me outside the hospital, hadn't he? All Ethan wanted was a simple, happy birthday from me, and I'd told him to stay out of my life, to get as far away as possible. The late truth crushed me, stealing my breath. He looked away. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. It's dark out, unsafe. If you're going to the hospital, you should. I grabbed his hand fiercely, lacing our fingers together, pushing my luck. He stiffened but didn't pull away, his voice low and rough. Nina, what are you doing? Haven't you humiliated me enough? I looked up, yanked his tie, and pulled him down. Husband, don't move. Those 4 words locked him in place like a spell. I stood on tiptoes and kissed his cold lips. His elegant pine scent scrambled as I crashed into him, messy and wild. I wrapped my arms around his neck, pushing him against the wall, soothing him carefully. He went from rigid to stunned, then surrendered, closing his eyes and letting me ravage him. His pristine shirt crumpled into a mess. Unconsciously, he gripped my waist, tightening, then greedily pressed me against him until we were fused together. The overhead lights flickered on and off until we parted in the dark, foreheads touching, breathless. Nina, Ethan's voice was low, strained. Don't do this. You don't like it? No, he was quiet for a long time before saying, don't tempt me. Go to him while I still have some control. You'd let me? I blew softly in his ear, pouting. Not jealous? Not mad? You'd let me kiss someone else. That seemed to snap him. He dipped his head, cutting me off with a fierce kiss, taking over, lifting me up, and tossing me back onto the couch. Before I could react, his hand cradled the back of my head, and he kissed me again, venting. I smirked inwardly. Without a push, he could hold back forever. But things spiraled a bit beyond my control. Ethan. I tensed, wary. Hey, what are you doing? I meant we could go home first. His voice was warm, rich. I gave you a chance. You didn't leave. Now, that chance is gone. With that, he flipped me over, pinning me against the back of the couch. His voice drifted into my ear, low and seductive. Nina, you're done for. I figured Ethan's personality wouldn't let him go too far. But I forgot, in my past life, he was the kind of madman who'd die with me. There was a wild streak buried in him. You. My weak pleas drowned in our kisses until I could only cling to his neck helplessly. Ethan, take it easy on me. He seemed angry, ignoring my words. I gritted my teeth, holding him tight, my nose stinging as tears splashed onto his shoulder. Ethan froze, stopping gently. Sorry. I rested my chin on his shoulder, tilting my head to see the moonlight streaming through the window. Ethan, I've already picked out names for our kids. I'd thought about it a lot in my past life, never got to tell him. Nina, don't. His voice was hoarse, a soft murmur. You don't believe me? Silence stretched endlessly. He probably didn't dare hope we'd have a child. I said, 1 boy, 1 girl. You can pick their nicknames. Before I knew it, the man who'd just regained his senses fell back into chaos. Ethan didn't let me finish, carrying my half-dazed self through a side door in the office. The door clicked shut. Wind lingered outside the window. The moonlight was clear. Behind the door, soft whispers filled the air. Late into the night, I got bratty and kicked him, saying I didn't want him anymore. Ethan dragged me back without a word. Don't want me? Then who do you want? He asked it so seriously. I flushed, stammering, not you, that's for sure. He nodded, deadpan. You don't get a say. That night, my dreams tangled with Ethan's embrace and raging fires. I lay in a pool of blood, strapped with explosives. Ethan burst into the flames, lifting me up, trembling all over. I saw him crying, weakly pushing at him. Get out. Ethan, I said get out, don't touch me, please. The dream shattered with my sobs. The warm touch vanished. I fell back into darkness, eyes snapping open, my face wet with tears. It was a dream. Coming to, I realized I'd shoved Ethan to the edge of the bed. From his expression, I'd been talking in my sleep. He handed me a tissue but kept his distance, his fingers avoiding mine. My heart sank. He'd misunderstood. Ethan. I tried to speak. I was dreaming. He listened intently. I choked up. I was in a fire, wired with bombs, and you were going to die with me. That's why I said that. Don't take it the wrong way. His eyes lit up briefly, like he'd figured something out, then dimmed again. Okay, I believe you. He tucked me in, grabbed a pillow, and headed out. Ethan. I called after him, facing his back. You're lying. He didn't answer. I hurled a pillow at him. Fine, go. I'm sore all over, and you're just leaving me here to fend for myself, you heartless jerk. I turned away, curling into a ball under the covers. No wonder people say young folks are stubborn. 10 years younger, Ethan was pig-headed and not remotely cute. After a long silence, the bed dipped behind me. He sighed. Sleep. I want to be held. He obediently pulled me into his arms. The night stretched on, but I stared into the endless dark, sleepless. Since coming back, too much information swirled in my head. The guy who kidnapped me had crossed paths with Ethan, a bankrupt businessman. The accident that happened to Ryan was a plot by my Uncle Martin to turn me against Ethan. These were things I learned in my last year alive. Ethan always kept my whereabouts tightly guarded, but I'd been snatched on my way to a prenatal checkup in Portland. How did they know? The only clue was that call from Ryan. And in my final moment, Ethan had said, thanks to Ryan, I wouldn't have found you otherwise. Caught up in it all back then, I hadn't seen it. Now, looking back, what role did Ryan, my trusted friend of over a decade, really play? After a sleepless night, my head felt like it had exploded the next morning. Ethan, I can't get up. How could you do this? He took a few kicks from me, helpless. Come eat breakfast. Nope. So annoyingly principled. I huffed. You're way less likable young. He paused, then asked mildly, young me? Yeah. I yanked the blanket from him, wrapping myself up. I like you 10 years older. Go age already, and stop bugging me. I squirmed to the warmest spot, stretching out, surrounded by his scent. I slept again until afternoon. He'd clearly anticipated me waking up hungry. Lunch was neatly laid out on the table. The place was spotless, everything in order. Except my bed, a chaotic little world within that order. Last night's antics had shredded the sheets, all tangled around Ethan. Say what you will, 28-year-old Ethan was pure compared to his 38-year-old self. I shook my head, banishing those blush-worthy images. After a quick wash, I ate breakfast, slipped on one of Ethan's shirts, and peeked out the door. The office was silent. His computer hummed with a video meeting. The slanting afternoon sun poured through the window, softening his natural aloofness in his crisp suit. My heart skipped. My ears turned red. Ethan's always been sharp. The second I opened the door, he looked up. Seeing me in his shirt, he froze. I coughed awkwardly, confirming no one else was around, then shuffled out, face burning, and sat across from him. I checked my phone. Ryan had called 5 times and sent over a dozen texts. All late last night. I must have been out cold, undisturbed by the noise. Unless. I glanced at Ethan thoughtfully. He stayed focused, pretending I wasn't there. Keep pretending, then. I propped my legs up, swinging them in his peripheral vision, not caring if I flashed anything. His voice hitched mid-sentence, paused briefly, then, that's it for today. He ended the meeting, leaned back in his chair, and frowned. Nina. Oh, last night it was Nina, now it's just Nina? Look at him, all prim and proper, like he didn't wipe me out last night. Anyone would think he's some saint. I nudged his leg under the table. Hey, boss man, did my phone ring last night? Ethan lowered his eyes calmly. Not sure. Really? I leaned over the desk, grabbed his tie, and pulled him close. Even if he hit it well, he was still just a young guy to me. Nina, it's work hours. He reminded me sternly, but his slightly uneven breathing gave him away. I almost believed he was above it all. Oh. I pecked his lips. Want more? He paused, then admitted plainly, yeah. I kissed him again. I'll be next door. Wait for you after work, we'll go home together. Back in the room, Ryan called again. Nina, I'm out of the hospital. His voice was raspy, thick with exhaustion, like he hadn't slept. I blinked. You're out? How? I'm done with treatment. His tone sank. If it can't be fully fixed, I'm giving up. I just want a quiet life with you. I frowned. We've been over this. I'm married. Then what about me? Ryan pressed. What about our promises? Is it because my face is ruined that you don't want me anymore? I hesitated. You're the one who said breaking up was the only way your career could take off, but you promised you'd wait for me. How long was I supposed to wait? I sighed. You had countless chances, but you kept me hanging. My Uncle Martin would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. My parents ditched me with the family in Boston right after I was born, then moved abroad to start new lives. I was just a pawn to them. While Ryan was raking in fame on the big screen, Martin had backed me into a corner. That night, I called him non-stop. He ignored everyone. The next day, I watched his on-screen first kiss, gave up, and took Martin's deal. Now, on the phone, Ryan asked, "Are you in love with him?" No hesitation. "I love him." 4 days after, Ryan went silent. I thought a lot about it. If I wanted to catch whoever killed me last time, I'd need Ethan's help. Step 1. Convince him I'd come back from the future. Otherwise, he might lock me up in a psych ward. So this noble woman, after coming back, starts digging into who destroyed her family in her past life. Having that edge is huge. Aren't you curious how she turned it all around? I propped myself up, sprawled across from Ethan, rambling excitedly. This was the third Rebirth novel I'd read to him this month. He listened intently. "If you like it, I could invest in it, turn it into a TV show." "It's not about me liking it. Do you like it?" He glanced at his wrinkled shirt I was wearing inside. "If you like it, I like it." I pressed him, holding an imaginary mic. "Come on, tell me your thoughts." "Ethan. Lately, things between us had gotten a lot smoother. He indulged me, pretty much giving in to everything. But something still felt off." "Ethan," I dragged a stool over, sat in front of him, and got serious. "I think it's time I told you." He set down his fork, ready to hear me out. "Go ahead." I took a dramatic breath. "I'm from the future too." Silence. A long, long silence. Ethan raised an eyebrow, lips twitching. He wanted to laugh. I pointed at him. "See? You don't believe me. Keep going, Nina," he said, barely hiding a smile. "I believe you." I went all in, spilling everything from my past life. At first, he listened like I was a kid telling a tall tale, humoring me. Then his brow furrowed. I knew I'd hit the mark. "The guy who stabbed me was named Frank, probably someone from your company who later went off on his own. It's 10 years earlier now, so I don't know where he is. Also, Martin was involved, and we need to watch out for Ree." A shrill ring cut me off. We both saw the name on the screen. Ryan. I hadn't changed his contact name yet. Ethan's face shut down, back to that cold distance. He stood, grabbing his plate. "I'll wash up." That feeling again. He was pulling away. I gritted my teeth, snatched my phone, and followed him to the kitchen. He stood at the sink, back to me, running the water. I hit speaker. Ryan's familiar voice filled the room. "Nina, this might be my last call to you." Besides his voice, there was the howl of wind. I tensed instantly. "Where are you?" "The roof of our old high school." His voice was faint. "Nina, remember? The day my parents left me, you said your family in Boston didn't care about you either, and we could be each other's family. When I was 18, I almost jumped off this roof. You stopped me." He sounded regretful. "Now you don't want me anymore. I don't see a reason to keep going. Ryan, don't do anything stupid." My head buzzed as I grabbed my clothes. "Wait for me. I'm coming." I hung up, turned, and saw Ethan still facing away, standing by the sink. Like he hadn't heard a thing, just the water running. I snapped, rushing in. "Hey, are you deaf? Why aren't you changing?" He stumbled as I yanked him, his dark eyes fixed on me. "Changing? I can't go alone. I'm married, aren't I?" I fumbled with my phone, talking fast. "Ethan, you've got 10 seconds to ditch that apron." "I'm calling the cops." "Crazy, the kids aren't even out of class yet, and he's gonna jump in front of them?" "Done." Ethan was already at the door, looking sharp. I blinked. That was quick. Good thing he could drive, saved us waiting for a ride. The police were already there when we arrived. They told me not to talk to Ryan anymore. Keeping him on a thread of hope would stall him long enough to clear the school. Ethan floored it within safe limits. We got there fast. The wind roared on the rooftop. It didn't cut through the summer heat. The campus was dead quiet. Cops stood 5 yards from Ryan. An officer pulled me up. "He insists on seeing you. Buy us some time, rescue's almost here." I glanced at Ethan, stuck behind the police line. He nodded at me. I took a deep breath, climbed the steps, and called out, "Ryan." The figure perched on the edge shifted, turning to face me. Half his burned face came into view. "Nina, you came." Seeing him, I faltered. It had been a while. In my past life, after Ethan and I made up, we visited him a few times. Ryan was hostile. Maybe it's hard to let go of hate when you find out the real villain wasn't who you thought. Between both lives, it had been over a year since I last saw him. "Ryan, come down, okay?" He ignored me, just stared. "I'm sorry." His gaze drifted to Ethan waiting below, then he said, "You were right, I was too extreme. You told me before we got married we'd only be family. I got greedy. I remembered those years Ryan and I leaned on each other to survive. When bullies came after me, he took the hits. When Martin kicked me out, he braved the rain to bring me an umbrella and take me home." For a moment, I wavered. Was he really the one who got me killed? Ryan smiled. "You promised to spend every birthday with me. Sing me a song, and I'll come down." "Okay, I'll sing." The wind quieted as my shaky birthday song floated across the rooftop. But while I sang, I thought about how I hadn't sung for Ethan that day. I'd make it up to him later. When I finished, Ryan stood, facing me. "Thanks. It's been years since I heard you sing, it was beautiful." "I've got one more question," he said softly. "Ask away. Do you still love me?" I went quiet, then said after a long pause, "You're my family." From the moment he stepped onto that stage, he was. Ryan's deep eyes flicked to the crowd, locking with Ethan's for a second. The rooftop wind chilled me. I said, "Let's go back, okay?" He looked back at me, smiling faintly. "Nina, I love you." Then he spread his arms and tipped backward into the endless night. Time froze. My blood turned to ice. I lunged forward. "Ryan!" But I grabbed nothing. The dark ground gaped like a beast's maw. Ryan vanished into the abyss. I stared at the blackness, mind blank. There was a dull thud, and my legs gave out, knees hitting the floor. Ryan, dead, just like that? Had I misjudged him? They say people are sharp. Ryan and I had known each other forever. He must have sensed me pulling away, so he chose to end it. Did that mean I'd killed him? I shivered uncontrollably, numb. Suddenly, a warm embrace pulled me in. Ethan's familiar scent was a lifeline. I clutched his sleeve. "I got him killed. I'm here. Don't be afraid," he said, holding me. I don't know what to do." I broke down, hugging him, incoherent. "I'm sorry." He stroked my hair. "He's not dead. Stop crying." He leaned close, whispering, "The cops set up an air mattress below. They caught him." I shut my eyes, tears soaking his shirt, then wailed louder. "When you think someone's died because of you, the guilt's a mountain, crushing you." Ethan's voice was rough. "Just some scrapes, he's in the hospital. If you want, I can take." "No." My throat was raw. "I want to stay with you." "Okay." We got back in the car. Outside, the police were leaving in waves. Soon, they'd take us to the hospital. Ryan had no family left. I leaned on Ethan's shoulder, exhausted. Before we left, I didn't finish, I think Ryan was involved too. Ethan inhaled deeply. "Nina, what if he wasn't? If he's innocent, would you pick him or me?" His question finally let me breathe. All this time, Ethan assumed he'd never be chosen. But 10 years later, I picked him every time without fail. I looked up at him, serious. "Remember when Ryan first broke out?" "Yeah. We didn't know each other then. I'd already split with Ryan by that point. My feelings for Ryan were complicated, if you could call them feelings. We survived a chaotic youth together, stepped into a brutal world side by side. Love? Barely a trace." I ticked off my fingers for Ethan. He debuted, acted, got famous. By the time you and I got married, we'd been broken up for over a year. I'll admit, I hated you at first. Like I hated Martin, anyone who barged into my life without asking. Then Ryan got into that car crash on his way to meet investors. Your driver was behind the wheel. I pegged you as another ruthless type like Martin. Ethan took my hand gently. "I'm sorry. It was my fault, I didn't think it through." "No," I hugged his arm. "I told you, it was Martin's doing. You didn't mess up. Anyone badmouths you, I'll fight them." He paused, then said, "Thanks." "For what?" "It's the first time someone stuck up for me like that." My guilt flared again. Ethan's family was rarely mentioned in the industry. He really didn't have anyone in his corner. He gazed at me earnestly. "Can you tell me how you started liking me?" The night was pitch black, but I saw the hope in his eyes. "Once, you came home drunk and tripped over a scarf I'd knit for the dog. Middle of the night, you sat there cross-legged, trying to figure out how to make it a sweater. I told you to sleep, and you said the pup would be cold without it in winter. So I thought, someone who cares if a dog's cold, maybe isn't heartless enough to hurt people." I didn't mention that he'd mumbled in his sleep that night, "Nina, I'm cold too." I'd gotten up for water and heard it. My heart softened. He seemed so pitiful. All alone, unloved. Ethan listened, rapt. "We'll have a dog?" "Yeah, 7 years from now, for my birthday. You gave me one, said you were too busy to be home, so it'd keep me company." I counted on my fingers, grinning. It's probably some old mutt somewhere now, not reborn yet. That dog was so smart, learned everything in a snap. I swear it skipped the amnesia soup. I stopped mid-sentence. Ethan blinked. What's wrong? I grabbed his hand, dazed. Ryan, he's like me. What do you mean? On the roof, I turned, brow creasing. When he jumped, he said it had been years since I sang him a birthday song. But I sang for him last year. Ethan's eyes narrowed, catching on instantly. You mean, in your past life, you hadn't? Yeah. Blood rushed to my head, a prickling unease. If he waited years for a song like he said, there's only one explanation. We locked eyes, confusion mirrored back. To the hospital. Half an hour later, the doctor told us someone had picked Ryan up. When we pressed, they cited patient privacy and shut us down. It was hard to believe Ryan wasn't tied to that mess. On the drive back, I kept turning one question over. Do you think he jumped on purpose? Ethan gripped the wheel, tapping the leather lightly. Normally, for a low building, cops set up an air mattress. If it were me, I'd be certain I wouldn't die jumping. I studied his profile, thoughtful. Oh. So what's his mindset, you think? He let out a dry hum. Guilt-tripping you to sway you his way, that's all. It was the first time in 2 lives I'd heard Ethan sound so petty. I nodded solemnly, biting back a smile. Yeah, you'd know. He said flatly, men understand men. I didn't call him out, just stared at the scenery flashing by, lost in thought. Telling Ethan who to watch out for 10 years early shouldn't make things worse. Remembering him charging into the fire to hold me, my chest ached again. How could I not fall for him? Kindness gets noticed. After hours on the road, it was late when we got home. Mary was gone. The living room was dark. Ethan reached for the light, but I tackled him onto the couch. His long legs braced on either side, catching my weight. His shirt crumpled as he rasped, "What are you up to?" Ethan. I leaned into his ear, whispering, "I love you." His breathing turned ragged. His throat bobbed, hands steadying my waist so I wouldn't fall. "Get off." A near-panicked command. I blinked, surprised. "No way, you." "Don't say it." He covered my eyes, his words ruthless. "Don't look either." Darkness fell, my lashes brushing his warm palm as I blinked. Who knew I love you hit so hard? Enough to unravel him like this. I grinned. "I love you. I love you." Teasing words tickled his heart like feathers, sparking a wildfire. I pressed my hands to his chest, feeling his heartbeat race beneath my palms. Softening my tone, I purred, "Ethan, I love you." His lips crashed into mine. He pinned me in the corner, fierce, undeniable, pouring out his love. His hands traced my face, my neck, cradling me like a treasure. Lost in the moment. "Naughty," he sighed. "Aren't you hungry?" "Starving." I clung to him like a koala, hands slipping under his shirt, roaming. "Famished, let's eat." He didn't budge, so I went for broke. "Hey, got any nicknames for the kids yet?" His eyes darkened, and he carried me past the dining table straight to the bedroom. The scent of roasted chicken legs caught my nose. I peeked out, eyes lighting up. "Wait, Mary left chicken." "No chance." For once, he shut me down cold. "You had one shot. Now it's my call." Ethan's got some negotiation skills, I'll give him that. More than some, he's a damn shark. His voice murmured in the dark, pulling me along like a boat on waves. Soft kisses trailed over my fingertips, folding me into his heart. "I'm yours." Drunk on him, I hummed, flipping over to pin him down. "Mine, all mine." Later, after a shower, my eyelids drooped. I hugged him, hands wandering, taking full advantage. He was like a docile big dog, never seemed to lose his temper. "Nina." I was wiped, my voice sluggish. "Right after we got married, you promised to see a movie with me. Next day, you cancelled with a stomachache and went to the hospital. Was it to see him?" That was ages ago for me. I racked my brain, it wasn't about Ryan. The night before, Ethan had someone drop off a little cake. I paired it with spicy chicken feet and ended up with food poisoning. I got in 4 at the hospital, grabbed meds, and went home to crash. But his tone sounded off. Sleep fled me. I sat up. Ethan looked startled briefly. "Sorry." "Don't apologize, I'm not mad." I crossed my legs. "I'm just wondering why you thought I went to see Ryan." With his resources, he could have easily checked my whereabouts and seen me half dead on a hospital drip. But he hadn't. After a short silence, he confessed, "I could see Ryan's social media. He doesn't post much, though?" Our eyes met, puzzled. He handed me his phone. I clicked Ryan's profile, and my brain buzzed the moment I saw it. August 9th, Nina said she'd celebrate my birthday today. Thanks, my love. August 1st, tried Nina's cooking. Still tastes like old times. I scrolled back to half a year ago. Movies out. Waiting for Nina. The day I had food poisoning. But on my phone, Ryan's feed was blank. This was visible only to Ethan. In reality, after the wedding, I barely saw Ryan. Just hospital bills or treatment updates, tops. I treated him like an old friend, but he'd been stabbing my loved ones in the back. My head throbbed with anger. And you believed it? Not a single photo of me. Ethan stared at my empty feed, something flickering in his eyes. Nina, I couldn't not believe it. He clicked in and out, like he was testing it, or just reacting to a sudden light. I was scared to check and find out you were really at the movies with him. If that happened, I'd rather not know. I was furious and heartbroken. You could have just asked. I stopped myself. Right, he wouldn't dare. Back then, I'd snap at him over nothing. Any answer he got would have been worse than his own guesses. I messed up. I buried myself in his arms, eyes stinging. Sorry, I won't lose it at you again. He chuckled low, kissing my ear. I don't mind. I like you feisty, it's cute. Just, don't say you don't want me again. That night, the last wall between us crumbled. I swear Ethan's got a masochistic streak. He's antsy if I don't chew him out daily. One early fall morning, I blew up again. Ethan, you trying to work yourself to death so I can hang an Employee of the Year banner on your grave? On the phone, his voice, sexy despite the cold, crackled with a laugh. I can handle it. Last night, he'd spiked a fever, burning up. I called the family doctor, forced some meds down him, and wiped him down with a wet towel. By dawn, the fever broke. I left Mary a list of bland recipes for when he woke up, then curled into him and passed out. But when I opened my eyes at 10, he was at work. Maybe it's my past life trauma, but I'm paranoid about his safety now. After a quick breakfast, I grabbed the porridge Mary made and rushed to his office. His secretary jumped up, nervous. Ethan's in a meeting, can't see anyone. No worries, I'll wait. I plopped onto the lobby couch, scrolling my phone. Soon, I heard Ethan's voice. Cold and cutting like I'd never heard. I gave you a chance. You didn't take it. Ethan, you set me up to fail. He laughed lightly. So what? That's unreasonable. I'm a businessman. Profit's my game. Reason doesn't play into it. I propped my chin, listening intently. The secretary looked ready to faint. The door flew open, and an angry middle-aged guy stormed out. Our eyes met briefly, and I froze. Frank, the guy who stabbed me in my past life? Was Ethan already making moves? 10 years ahead, talk about proactive. The secretary yelled, sweating, Ethan, your wife's here. I snapped out of it, carrying the lunchbox inside. No ruthless CEO in sight. Ethan sat by the window, white shirt spotless, smiling softly at me. I'll head home for lunch. I dropped the box on his desk with a thud and sat across from him. That guy just now. Scared you? His voice was gentle, teasing. Sorry, I'll watch my tone next time. No, I scratched my head. That's the guy I told you about, the one who stabbed me. Ethan's eyes turned to ice. Leave it to me, he said simply, then dug into the food. The porridge was still warm, perfect timing. He ate with such grace, it was almost art. Noticing my stare, he paused. Want to join me? Nah. I leaned forward, hesitant. He stopped again, sighing. What? A new bag? Clothes? Use the card I gave you, or I'll go shopping with you after work. I bit the bullet, ears red. Could you, maybe, talk to me like you did just now? What? I covered my face, practically sliding under the table. Please, I'm really into that. Ethan's face blanked out. Then I remembered one night, blurting out, look at me like I'm trash. Now I was mortified. Some things just slip out. He swallowed his bite and laughed. I kicked him, embarrassed. Don't laugh, forget I said that. I won't, he said, eyes on me. I can never say no to you. That day, I bolted out of his office, face red as a tomato. After 2 tangled lives, we finally felt like we were dating. I hijacked Ethan's social media. Every few days, I'd post my kitchen flops, blurry couple pics, and cheesy captions that'd make anyone cringe. Ethan hinted politely, I do have some friends, you know. Meaning, this is embarrassing. But seeing me have fun, he let it slide, taking the teasing in stride. The same comments popped up under every post. Old bachelor's done for. Showing off the wife again. Blink if she's got you hostage. Time flew, and soon it was late fall. Ryan seemed to vanish from my life, phone cancelled, all ties cut. Sometimes, seeing high schoolers after class stirred old memories. But my gut said this wasn't the end. Ethan got busier. Out early, back late. Waiting for him at home, I'd think of my past life. Same deal, endless work, barely time to talk. "Ma'am, it's 10. You should sleep," Mary said. I sat cross-legged on the rug, surrounded by shopping bags. "I'll wait a bit longer." It had gotten cold, so I'd hit the mall, decking Ethan out for winter. A camel plaid scarf, wool coat, and fuzzy matching gloves that looked a tad childish. Stuffing them in the closet, I heard a buzz from his coat pocket. A phone, work one, I guessed. I snapped a pic and texted him, teasing, "Ethan, sweetie, what's this secret phone?" He was used to my random jabs. "Work stuff, forgot it. Open it for me?" I grinned, muttering, "Better not be a love letter, or I'll flip." It was an email, a medical report. I squinted, zooming in. "Richard, skull fracture, brain bleed. Guy got smashed by something. Oh, death cert, work accident. Poor dude." Ethan listened. "Sweetie, put it back. I'll grab you a cake on my way home." "You said I could look stingy." He chuckled. "Nothing worth seeing." Dinner was warming in the kitchen. I tucked the phone away, grabbed wrapping paper, and started boxing the clothes for a surprise. My friend Lauren teased me on the phone. "You used to hate him so much, Nina. Did someone swap your soul?" "Ethan's the best. I was just blind before, okay?" "Fine, fine. When are you joining me at the studio? Your designs are gold, people are begging for them." I wavered. "Soon. I can send drafts from home." "Oh, sticking with your Ethan, huh?" I couldn't deny it, I wanted to be with him. If we redid this life with no changes, we'd still die together. Every day counted. Ethan came home right on time. I left a lamp on in the living room, the stew was still warm. I curled up in the sofa corner, holding my breath. "Nina," he called softly. I stayed quiet, sneaking behind him, then pounced on his shoulders. "Meow." He caught me, helpless. "Hold on tight, don't fall. You're not scared? I saw your shadow." I rubbed against him, deflated. "To the bedroom, I got you a gift." He carried me in. A lopsided, giant gift box sat in the middle of the room. "What's this?" "A belated birthday gift. I wasn't happy with this year, the noodle soup wasn't even mine. I earned this cash slaving over designs." I slid off his back, beaming. "Open it." Ethan lowered his gaze, staring at it for a while. "Nina, thank you." "Go on." His hand rested on the box, hesitating. "There's something I need to talk about." "Shoot." He faltered, then said, "We might need to split up for a bit." I froze, thinking I'd misheard. When it sank in, I said slowly, "You want a divorce?" Pain flashed in his eyes. He opened his mouth, but I shot up. "I get it. I'll pack." "Nina." He grabbed me. "Hear me out, okay?" Tears welled up. I turned away, hiding them. "Just say it." "I already know, you're mad I hurt you. Being nice was just revenge. I shouldn't have called you a creep who stole me away, or ditched you at the movies for 2 hours, or smeared jam on your shirt knowing you hate mess. I deserve this." He went quiet. "Where'd you smear the jam?" "Your shirt, and the sheets." "When?" "Right after we got married, I wanted to get back at you." Light shifted, and next thing I knew, I was over his lap. Smack. A sharp sting hit my lower back, tingling. Tears spilled as I wailed, divorce wasn't supposed to include domestic violence. "Help. I barely tapped you." He laughed, exasperated. "Nina, grow up." I thrashed, defiant. "Success books say hit your rival's weak spot. You love clean, I messed up your sheets. I'll do it again before the divorce." Smack. Another one. My face burned. "Ethan, this is humiliating. Just end me. You couldn't handle that." He scooped me up, pinning my flailing limbs, stern. "Enough, no crying. I'm serious now. We need to fake it." "Fake what?" "Richard was Ryan's dad," he said straight. "That email you saw, his dad died in a work accident. That project, years ago, was a deal between your Uncle Martin and my dad." I flashed back to that day on the roof with Ryan. He stood up there, wind whipping his shirt like a sail. I held a popsicle, shouting, "Ryan, what are you doing?" He turned, despair etched on his young face. "My family's gone. I've got no one." Shocked by his loss, I edged closer, offering the popsicle. "I don't have family either. How about me?" "You?" "Yeah, look, This is from when they locked me in the girls' bathroom and beat me up. Martin just yelled at me for causing trouble, didn't care. Ryan eyed my bruised arm, took the popsicle, and jumped down from the ledge. What's your uncle's name? Martin. He looked up slowly. Martin? From Martin Corporation? Yep. He studied my face with a new intensity. Don't worry, I'll treat you good from now on. Lost in the memory, it clicked years later what that look meant. Maybe before he knew Martin's name, Ryan genuinely saw me as family. But my tie to the Martins gave him an in for revenge. He spent years teaching me family never betrays, that you repay harm to kin 1,000-fold. But his first promise was built on a lie. Ethan said, Nina, I can tell Ryan likes you. You said he helped get you killed last time, maybe because you chose me. I can't keep you tied to me, gambling with your life. You're barely linked to the Martins, Ryan knows that. If you leave me, I'll take the risks alone. I shook my head slowly. No way. Be good. Not happening. I gripped his hand, stubborn. I'm not divorcing you. You know, last time, we even had a kid. I never got to tell you. He froze. Really? Yeah, maybe it's already here. He went rigid, staring at my stomach. Ethan, I'll play along, but no divorce. Weeks later, the media exploded. Big shot entrepreneur Ethan suspected of marital trouble, divorcing his wife. That same day, pics of me moving out of our house in Seattle hit the web. Lauren watched me haul bags into her apartment, thrilled. Rich girl, finally ditching him to work with me? Yeah, I said, deadpan. Men suck. Hey, you were all Ethan, sweetie, a few days ago. Spill, what happened? Her gossip-hungry eyes met my gloom. I smeared jam on his sheets. That's it? That's it. Divorced. So, what's your plan? Life solo. Day 3, Martin called. Nina, come back to Boston tomorrow night. I watered some lilies, smiling. Oh, Martin, suddenly remember me? You're divorced now. Family can't let you suffer out there. We're throwing a party, might find you a new match. Word travels fast. Just say if you're coming. I'll be there. I hung up. Lauren frowned. Didn't you cut ties with your parents? What's their drama got to do with you? Blood's thicker than water. If I don't play along, they'll keep screwing with me. That night, I wore a sleek black fishtail dress and stepped into the Martins' house in Boston. The banquet hall buzzed with clinking glasses. Eyes turned to me as I entered, whispers rippling. That's the Martin girl, right? Barely a blip. With parents like hers, who'd care? Should your son try? Hitching to the Martins, decades less grind. Get lost. I wove through the crowd. Around a corner, a familiar voice. Long time no see. Ethan stood there, wine glass in hand, charming the room. He always shone. Word of his divorce had bosses swarming, women layering around him. Must be thrilled. They noticed me, and the chatter hushed. Ethan, maybe catch up with. He flicked me a cold glance and looked away. No need. We're done. I grabbed a champagne flute from a waiter and sauntered over. People parted, scared we'd clash and they'd get caught in it. Ethan's deep gaze lingered on my glossy lips, trailed down my neck, tracing my curves, and he blanked on his lines. Impatient, I splashed the champagne on his shirt, smirking. Just saying hi, mind, Ethan? His fingers brushed mine reluctantly as he took the empty glass, smiling faintly. Not at all. I huffed, ditched the glass, and pushed out to the balcony for air. Someone was already there. Someone I knew. Ryan. He leaned on the railing, his burned face half in shadow, the other half still striking. Nina, been a while. My lashes trembled, hands clenching behind me. Yeah, a while. He chuckled. Why so formal? I forced calm, breathing deep. Why would you think that? I should be asking you, where've you been? Blacklisting my number? You've grown bold. Like old times, I shoved him playfully. A shadow blocked the light from the door. Ethan leaned casually against the frame, watching us. Ryan stepped fully into the dark. I had surgery. Surgery? He leaned closer, dim light hitting his face. The burned skin was mostly fixed. Look close, same as before? I stared, dazed. Yeah, the same. I stepped back, widening the gap. I'm happy for you, really. The door swung open. Martin strode in with a gaggle of guests. Here, let me introduce. My niece, Nina. Next to her, our company's new actor, Ryan. They've known each other since they were kids. This party's partly to settle their future. The crowd buzzed, tossing out flattery, boxing us in. I frowned. Martin, I'm not ready. Ryan slung an arm over my shoulders, grinning. Don't worry, Martin. I'll take good care of Nina. I squirmed, but his grip was iron, and I panicked. After a tense half-minute, he let go, chatting easily with the guests. My mood sank. When he finished, I asked, "Since when are you tight with Martin?" Ryan tugged his tie lazily. "Only with the Martins' blessing can I marry you. I had other plans, but your divorce saved me the trouble." His face felt foreign, terrifying. He smirked. "What? Don't recognize me? Feel like I'm not the Ryan you knew?" He used to smile like sunshine, like we belonged to the same world. Now, I saw I'd been wrong. He advanced, pushing me back step by step. I hit the glass door. "Nina, this is me." His grin twisted in the dim light, grotesque. "I wasn't going to let either of you off, but I love you. Come back, and we'll be like before. You don't want to die with Ethan again, do you?" I shook, fear swallowing me. He knew everything? Ryan clocked my widened eyes and ragged breathing, leaned past me, and turned the knob. The door opened. Cheerful violin music floated in. Light flooded the space. He mouthed silently, "Go enjoy the party. See you soon." I stumbled into the crowd, drenched in cold sweat. The dazzling lights made me dizzy. I leaned on the stairs, climbed to the second floor by memory. At the hall's end was my old room. I needed a break. The door barely opened before someone grabbed me, covering my mouth, and yanked me behind it. Ethan's familiar scent hit me, his low voice laced with a hint of wine. "Where'd he touch you?" I went limp in his arms. Shaking softly. "My shoulder." A hot kiss landed there instantly. Lingering, intense. Ethan wordlessly kissed away Ryan's touch, marking me with his own, then found my lips, nibbling slow. Fear and tension melted under his comfort. In the dark, we kissed. After a while, I whispered, blushing, "Jealous?" "A whole vat." His tone was dour. "No one touches you. No one." He moved to bite my shoulder. "Hey." I pushed him off. "I've got to go back down, teeth marks would look weird." He frowned, unconvinced. I added, "They'd say I jumped from you to Ryan right after the divorce." "You want that gossip?" He paused. "No." "Then chill." I rested my head near his heart, feeling its strong beat. "Ryan's teamed up with Martin. He's onto me and might counter your moves." "You sure about this?" "Nina." "Yeah? If the Martins take a hit because of this, what'll you do?" So that's what worried him. I took his hand. "My parents' marriage was a business deal, they hated each other. The year I was born, they dumped me with Martin and split overseas. He used me as a bargaining chip. Without you, I'd be hitched to some 70-year-old geezer. So don't hold back for me." I hooked his ring finger, spotting the wedding band back on, and smiled. "If the Martins crash, it's Martin's dirty deeds catching up. He's got it coming." For the next few months, I went back to work. I hadn't taken a dime from the Martins since growing up, lived off odd jobs and built a skill to survive. Unless Martin dragged me back to set me up with Ryan, life was calm. Lauren wasn't thrilled. "You cut them off, why still jump when they call?" I didn't explain. Ryan knew my deal. If I didn't play nice, he'd nudge Martin to sabotage Ethan. Until Ethan took them down, I had to keep steady. Plus, Ryan let me pick date spots, daytime, busy parts of Seattle. Safe enough. Lauren loved TV. Ethan popped up on finance channels lately. She'd curse him out every time. "Total sleaze, Nina. Your next groom's gotta pass my test." She waved the remote like she had tremors, jabbing at Ethan's face, voice cracking. "Guys like him? Bad news. If I let you marry him, I'd eat dirt upside down." I crawled out of my design pile, awkward. "Don't jinx yourself, leave some wiggle room." "Fine, I'll drag you down with me." Her hate made meeting Ethan a stealth mission. Deep winter, after a big snow. I stepped out of Lauren's building in a thick sweater, trash bag in hand. Ethan's car waited downstairs. It was freezing, but he stood outside, wearing the wool coat and scarf I'd bought him. "Come here." He beckoned. I bounced over, leaping into his arms, shushing him. "Quiet, let's get in the car." "What's up?" "My bestie thinks you're a world-class jerk now." I dragged him in like a thief. Lights off, darkness closed in. Only a street lamp cast a glow on the snow. Bundled in my puffy jacket, I fumbled, pulling out a pair of knit gloves. "For you." Ethan smiled, taking them carefully. "Mrs. Ethan, I've got plenty already." "Don't like 'em?" I reached to snatch them. He dodged quick. "Thank you, I love them." We didn't have much in common, but the words never ran dry. I slumped against his shoulder, nuzzling. "Lauren says if I remarry a guy like you, she'll what?" It was too crude to say. I brushed it off. Something gross. I sighed. I can already picture her beating me up. He laughed, taking my hand. How about you pick someone else? Ethan. I shoved him, glaring. What's that supposed to mean? He lowered his eyes, silently tucking my hand into his. His long, perfect fingers swallowed both of mine. I want to be with you. I sulked, energy fading. Lately, I kept having nightmares. Always Ethan saying I should live on alone. I'd wake up with swollen eyes. Nina, I mean he paused. If one day, we got separated. Tears splashed onto his hand, cutting him off. A sigh brushed my hair. He hugged me, patting my head. Just a what if. Even that's terrifying. My voice muffled. I never got love from my parents growing up, so I clung to anyone who was nice. Ryan was like that, and you were too, at first. But it changed. Liking someone brings joy and sadness. With you, it's more. I want you happy, see others have stuff and think you should too. I watch what I say, scared to upset you. My emotions are tied to you. So separate hurts. He kissed my hair, sighing. Nina, you're loving me. Then don't split, okay? You said you'd never refuse me. He hummed, patting my back. Alright, no splitting. Next morning, I shuffled out with puffy eyes. Lauren munched a meat pie. Crying last night? Yeah, grab me a popsicle. She rummaged in the freezer, handed me an expired one, and pressed it to my lids. I saw you hop in a fancy car last night. I iced my eyes, silent. She rolled her eyes. Great, back with the ex, huh? Got humiliated and cried all night, pathetic. It's not like that. He's good. Stop. She dug at her ear. One more nice word about him, and I'm tossing you out. I gave up, sipping my soy milk, cheeks puffed, staring at her. She, swallow, what, brain ran off with the guy, forgot how to eat. I sprayed it out, rushing to the bathroom to gag. She stormed in, soy milk on her face, handed me water, patting my back. God, what's wrong? Don't scare me, I'm calling an ambulance. I grabbed her. No. Let go, your face looks like death. I held tight. I'm pregnant. What the hell? She froze, then, holy crap. Minutes later, she dragged me into a cab. Ryan called. Nina, where are you? I remembered, our date today. Sorry, emergency. Where? Send me the address. Lauren, knowing I didn't like him, snatched the phone and shut it off. Biggest secret ever, and you're not telling his dad? Fine, Nina, you're something else. Off was safer anyway. I sighed. Keep it quiet, don't tell your folks. I don't want the Martins knowing. She stewed, ignoring me, then asked, just gonna have it? Yeah. Alright. You birth it, I'll be the cool aunt. Women hold up half the sky, we'll raise a kid fine. The cab radio blared news. We listened, then went quiet. The Martins were in trouble. Broke this morning. Tied to an old, deadly construction accident. Ethan's family, a partner back then, got dragged in too. Lauren squeezed my hand, worried. I shook my head. I'm fine. I hadn't expected Ethan to move this fast. The Martins scandals piled up like straws on a camel, waiting for the last one to break it. In my past life, Martin masterminded that explosion through Frank. Now, my dangling heart eased a bit. 10 years early. Ethan's empire was soaring, Martin's mess hadn't grown unstoppable. It shouldn't happen again, right? Traffic was light, the ride smooth. Halfway there, my eyes drooped. I leaned on Lauren. Wake me when we're there. Before she answered, I blacked out. A faint voice came from far off. Nina, open your damn eyes. Screeching metal jolted me awake. My limbs felt heavy. I blinked, cement pipes, Lauren tied to one. Wind carried the stench of oil and dirt. I staggered up, dazed. Lauren kicked uselessly, ropes creaking. Thank God, get over here, untie me. Realizing we were bound in a strange place, I rushed over, crouching to see thick ropes. Memories flooded back. I scanned around, cold sweat dripping. This was the abandoned factory where I died last time. The knots were tight, couldn't undo them, only fray them. Steel groaned through the building. Lauren cursed. They'll regret kidnapping me. The ropes wouldn't budge. She slumped, spent. Nina, stop. They tied me, not you, my family's the target. Run, call the cops. I smiled bitterly. Sorry, I think I dragged you into this. What? Ryan's voice cut in from behind. Your friend's loud as hell. Lauren craned to look. I covered her eyes, turning to Ryan. She's clueless, let her go. Lauren snapped, listen up, jerk, I'm Lauren, from the Laurens. Touch me, and my dad'll make you wish you were dead. Ryan's face darkened. I said, you hurt her. This is between us, leave her family out. Lauren's dad was in politics, her brother a cop. She'd always been fearless. If she got hurt, no one'd walk away. Ryan tossed me a utility knife. Cut her loose. You don't move, or none of us leave alive. I grabbed it, freeing Lauren. Don't look at anything, go home. She frowned, whispering, a trick? I'll call the cops. Good, I murmured. But I think they're past caring about police. That explosion flashed back. I shoved her. Go. She gripped my shoulder. Nina, wait for me, I'll get help. She bolted without looking back. The empty space left just me and Ryan. I stood, meeting his grim stare. What do you want? Why'd you go to the hospital? He shot back. Stomachache. Meds. He sneered. Nina, don't play me for a fool. He grabbed me, dragged me to the window, and forced my chin down. Let's see who's here. Below, a man had a gun to Ethan's head, Martin. My heart seized. Ryan laughed. Cops show up, they'll find Ethan's body. Martin's done too. My pulse raced, fingers icy, trembling. But showing I cared would make it worse. I shut my eyes. We're divorced. What happens to him's not my problem. Oh? Ryan watched below, cold. Martin, shoot his leg. Bang. Blood bloomed on Ethan's thigh. He dropped to one knee, looking up at us, face ashen. Ryan, I'm here, let her go. Ryan ignored him, turning to me. Nina, happy? I was frozen, speechless. Martin, the other. I grabbed his hand, shaking. Stop, please. Ryan's smile vanished, knuckles whitening. Ethan's eyes darkened, sweat beading. Don't scare her. Ryan's glare was lethal. He smirked at Ethan, then lifted my chin and kissed me. His cracked lips, brutal force, I gagged, thrashing. Want him dead, he hissed. I went still. He pressed against my lips, grinding. Nausea surged. I shoved him off, fell to my knees, and puked. Do it. Ryan's order was ice. A gunshot rang below. My mind blanked, and I scrambled to the window. Ethan. He wasn't bleeding out. Martin was, shot in the back, face down. Ethan's left hand dripped blood. Armed police swarmed in, sealing the area. Ryan's face twisted. He yanked me behind a pillar, out of sniper range. Cops shouted at him through the window. He hadn't counted on them coming so fast. He choked me, yelling, I've got explosives. Send Ethan up, or she dies with me. I gasped, vision dimming. Ryan, calm down. I'm calm. Last time, you'd die with Ethan, why not me? I clawed at him. I don't want. His voice rose, frantic. I could have fixed everything. Why'd you have to come back too? Give me the old Nina. I reached out, light fading. Ryan. Ethan's low voice came from steps away. I'm here. Let her go. The grip on my neck vanished. I doubled over, coughing, tears blurring as I stretched toward Ethan instinctively. His leg wound had crusted, his hand was bandaged, messier than last time. From the moment he climbed up, his eyes never left me, terrified I'd vanish. Ryan pulled me back, a knife at my throat. Ethan, let's play something new. He pointed to a leather jacket nearby. Put it on. I knew that jacket too well. No, don't. My voice broke, desperate. You can't. Ryan cackled, wild. Nina, last time Ethan hugged you to death. How much do you love him? No, I scratched at his hand like a madwoman. He pinned me, sneering. Think he can beat me? He hid you so well, but I'd still break in and take you. I've waited for this. Today, it's him or you. Ethan didn't hear us. Keep the knife off her, and I'll wear it. Ethan! Get out of here! I screamed, sobbing hysterically. Please! He acted like he didn't hear me, eyes locked on the blood beading where the blade nicked me. He slipped the jacket on fast. A beep sounded. The countdown started. I shut my eyes, despair swallowing me whole. Ryan shoved me forward. Nina, pick one. I stumbled toward Ethan, crying, but he stepped back. Nina, stay back, he said firmly. It's rigged. I froze, rooted to the spot. I wasn't afraid to die, but choosing Ethan in front of Ryan right now would only make him snap harder. It might even trigger the bomb early. Nina, admit it, you only love yourself. You're just like Martin, selfish to the core, Ryan taunted from the side. Ethan backed to the window, glanced at me, then spoke. Ryan, I'm sorry about your dad. You don't get to mention him. Ryan's face twisted with rage, taking half a step forward. You rich kids born with silver spoons, any of you got a shred of heart? But your dad messed up back then, broke the rules, skipped the hard hat. We paid what was owed. Shut up. Ethan's lips curled into a cold, mocking smirk. You're just a coward who can't do anything. I was shaking all over. This was insane. Every word Ethan said stabbed straight into Ryan's weak spots. Did he want to die? Ryan pulled a lighter from somewhere, flung it down, and flames roared up instantly. That oily smell in the air, he'd doused the place beforehand. You all ruined my life. Ryan's eyes were bloodshot as he lunged at me, his half-repaired face grotesque in the firelight. Nina, why didn't you choose me? If you'd said you hated the scars, I wouldn't have torched myself so bad. Cold water dumped over my head couldn't have shocked me more. It was him. He did it to himself. You're insane. Yeah, how else was I supposed to use your guilt to dig up Ethan's secrets? Ryan had bided his time for years, and now he ripped off that gentle mask, revealing a manic, obsessed lunatic. His laugh grated like a busted bellows, shrill and ugly. Nina, if you'd picked me, it wouldn't end like this. You've got no one to blame but yourself. Come to hell with me. He pulled out a remote. I didn't think, just turned and threw myself at Ethan, wrapping my arms around him tight. Nina. Ethan barked my name, and then, bang. Glass shattered, and everything went silent. A piercing buzz stabbed at my brain like a needle. Ethan's bloodless face hovered in front of me, mouthing something I couldn't hear. It felt like I'd been blown to pieces. Numb, no strength left, but dying with him, I wasn't scared. Was I? Then why was I crying? The deafness lasted a split second. Then a flood of shouts slammed into my ears like a bomb. Suspect down. Body located, second floor, abandoned factory. Team 1 reporting, detonator intact, hostages safe. No other explosives detected. Fire spreading fast, get the hostages out now. Arms hauled me up. I turned back as we left, Ryan lay face down, motionless. Dead. A hand covered my eyes. Cold air cleared the smoke from my nose. Sirens wailed, red and blue lights flashing against the sinking sun. My legs gave out, and I dropped into the snow, trembling like a leaf. Lauren's cursing cut through, it was music to my ears. 21st century, law and order, and they're still playing with bombs? Sweeps for crime don't even count anymore. These punks think they're above it, lock 'em up, life sentences, death row, 1 bullet and their moms won't know 'em. Bro, grab every last one, don't let 'em slip. Calm down, go check on Nina. We've got this. Lauren spotted me kneeling in the snow and hollered, Nina, get up. You've got a kid, quit rolling around. Ethan, mid-chat with the cops about the bomb, froze and whipped his head toward me, staring. Before Lauren reached me, he yanked off the jacket, scooped me up without a word, and marched to the car, stone-faced. Hey, who are you? No heads up, Lauren yelled. Slam. The car door cut off her protests. He shoved me into the back seat, climbed in, and glared at me, dark and brooding. I shrank into the corner, nervous. Don't look at me like that, I'm scared. You should be. Jumping on me like it's a game of tackle. A tense silence, then he unloaded. You think dodging bullets is fun? The bomb was on me. What if Ryan hit the button? I flinched as he kept going, tears spilling over. He'd never yelled at me like this. The bomb was on me, he snapped, veins popping. What then? I shut my eyes and flopped into his chest. Oh no, I'm fainting from fright. He choked on his next words, sucking in a breath, veins pulsing. Then he crushed me in a hug, and I felt his hands trembling. Sorry. I was too harsh, he mumbled, messing up my hair, voice softening. I was gonna jump out the window. Even if the snipers missed, the blast wouldn't touch you. Why'd you have to grab me? You've never been that strong before. I didn't think. TV says duck when there's a bomb. I wasn't about to hug Ryan. He stalled, at a loss. Thank God we were both alive. Your wounds all patched up? I asked. Yeah. I don't buy it, show me. Nina, he laughed, helpless. It's on my upper thigh. I tugged at his pants. We're married, what's the shy act for? Lauren's voice muffled through the glass. Yeah, I think my friend's getting roughed up, her guy snatched her. You got a contact at the women's shelter? She yanked the door open. Light poured in. I was straddling Ethan's lap, hands halfway through unbuckling his belt. Lauren held her phone, staring blankly at us for 3 seconds, then slammed the door. Scratch that, what about abused dogs? Forget the shelter, call animal rescue. At our remarriage, Lauren sat at the head table. She barely touched her food. When we toasted her, Ethan said smoothly, Nina always talked about you. Said if she remarried me, you'd predict something nasty. Her old threat hung in the air, if she picks him again, I'll eat crap upside down. She glanced at me, I glanced at her. Silence. I'd just mentioned it offhand, didn't expect Ethan's memory to be that good. Lauren forced a smile, raising her glass. Well, that's behind us. Here's to, 100 years of happiness. Ethan smiled back. Thanks. After the toast, I trailed him, muttering, that was ages ago, why bring it up? He grinned. I was curious. Really? Yeah. I hesitated, then smirked. Lean in, I'll whisper it. I hugged him, giggling into his ear. His brows lifted, a laugh lighting up his face. I doubled over, cackling. What if she actually did it, and dragged me along? Ethan, your rep would be toast, haha. My laughter echoed through the hall. Ethan watched me, his gaze soft enough to melt. After the reception, guests could roam the beach resort. By evening, I ditched the wedding dress for loose clothes and a floppy sun hat, holding Ethan's hand as I skipped along the sand. You always promised to bring me to the coast, never happened, I said. Always meaning? Oh. The 38-year-old you. It slipped out. He frowned. Kinda old. No way. I savored the thought. You at 38 were hot, quieter than now, but easy to tease. That older Ethan had a calm edge, the kind that drove me wild. He looked thoughtful, distracted for the rest of the walk. That night, back in the room, I got arrested. A dangerous heat crept up behind me, his warm chest pressing close. Click. I was locked in. Ethan's cool voice dripped with want. That old guy know you like I do? It hit me, that's why he'd been off all day. He was jealous. I burst out laughing. Hey, you. He gripped my chin, facing the mirror, eyes hooking mine. Easy to tease? He chuckled. He's got nothing on me. Don't say that, I protested. Defending him now? The vinegar was spilling over. No, I mean, I was near tears. 10 years from now, will you still be proving this when you remember it? He paused, dead serious. Technically, yeah. Both of you fighting it out, why am I the one suffering? He ignored me, staring at our reflection. Wish that old man could see this. I covered my face, mortified. Stop it. He kissed me, firm and unyielding, murmuring, Nina, you're mine. That night might have been my emotional peak. I had to swear he outdid the 38-year-old version, then reassure him that 38-year-old Ethan was still a catch. Late night, moonlight slipped through the curtains, tracing his profile. He was asleep. I brushed his face gently, heart warm. Countless times, I'd held the older Ethan's hand, sighing, if only we'd gotten together sooner. 10 whole years, we'd lived as miserable strangers. In those years, I'd felt something, I think. Late nights when he tucked me in, I'd wanted to hold him tight and say, let's make up. But Ryan's accident was a thorn in my chest. Those flickers of feeling I wouldn't admit to, each time they stirred, that thorn stabbed deeper. Reminding me Ethan hurt my family. Maybe I'd bottled it up too long. When the truth came out, love rushed in, giving me a short, sweet romance. I'd liked him longer than I ever let myself believe. Nina, why re you up? Ethan's voice was rough with sleep. I cradled his face, leaning in for a feather-light kiss. I love you. Under my hands, his heart kicked into overdrive. This guy. Still so easy to fluster. I love you too. He caught my fleeing lips, taking over, deepening it. His sudden fire overwhelmed me. Hey, what's gotten into you? I had a dream. Yeah? He opened his eyes, something stormy brewing in them, dark and unsteady. About our last life. My breath hitched. For real? Yeah, he said, brushing my messy hair aside, gazing at me like I was priceless. Nina, I'm so damn glad we got a redo. The night stretched on, moonlight shy, wind soft. A warm scent floated, curtains swaying, brushing the wind chimes. Hearts beat in sync. I melted into a gentle sea, cradling my moon, whispering, when'd you start liking me? The wedding? The moon replied, no, I've liked you for a long, long time.